Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? I'm wearing my World Cup of Hockey shirt. Got my World Cup of Hockey Canada shirt back there because it was a year ago that I was at the World Cup of Hockey, and definitely, that was one of the more fun things I've done in a long time. It's just a lot of fun to watch that much hockey and cover that much hockey. Just going to the arena knowing you're going to watch 3 games is the greatest thing. Last night, though, I actually got to do something that was kind of cool. I through mutual friends and all kinds of crazy the connections are too long to even get into. I got tickets and backstage meet and greet passes for me and my daughter for Shawn Mendes, who is a really popular singer. He's got like the #1 album in the country right now. 19-year-old from Pickering, Ontario.
Oh.
You know, so it's not the first person I've covered. The first 19-year-old I've covered from Pickering, Ontario. It feels like there's a lot of NHL, well, a lot of hockey. Glenn Healy is, I think, probably the most famous NHLer from Pickering, Ontario. But there's a lot of guys, as I was finding out last night, and a lot of his friends. It's just really interesting because, you know, he is a 19-year-old kid from Pickering, Ontario, so he obviously has lots of kids that he knows that are playing, you know, that are going to be playing in the league at some point or other. So it was a really neat time. And really, my daughter now thinks I'm the coolest dad in the world. For the next couple of weeks at least, I'll be that. And that was really something. It was a great concert and really kind of cool to see a rock show again. It was more of a rock show than a pop show, and the kids are incredibly talented. A lot of screaming, though. It reminds me of why the Beatles quit. You know, like a lot of girls screaming. The Beatles quit touring because they go the girls screaming, and this guy, man, he brings out the screamers for sure. So I was
saying, like,
yeah,
if you're trying to concentrate on your music, they don't want to hear screaming every 12 seconds.
Yeah, you know, but he does encourage it, definitely. He's pushing for it sometimes. You know, he's yelling, screaming out the words and screaming out things like that. So he's trying.
I think it's good to sing the words. I've been at some concerts recently where everybody knows the words, but I could tell that bands at some point like want you to listen and then, you know, scream and whatever as the song's ending or beginning, and then kind of shush for a little bit.
Right.
I heard the echo, so I logged off and logged back in. I think that worked.
Better, yeah.
Just for the screaming aspect of it, it's like I don't frequent artists that bring that kind of reaction. It's like I'm not going to ever go to a Backstreet Boys or NSYNC concert if they get back to, you know, whatever. The closest I've ever come is to like a John Mayer.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think I like his stuff. I think he's a good enough musician that he draws people who are appreciators of music, but then he also draws like 17-year-old girls who just think he's the cutest. So
yeah, I mean, look, I go to 30 Seconds to Mars, so obviously there's some of that there, and another band, All Time Low, definitely has a certain amount of it there, but not for the whole show. Like for the whole show, that would annoy me.
I think now, Ek, it's more prevalent towards these country artists like Jason Aldean, who honestly I've never heard one song of his, but they seem to be now like the heartthrobs.
There is a big country and pop are very close to each other right now. As far as, you know, it's hard to tell which is which.
But haven't they always been? I mean, really, let's be real about
moments, you know, like they have their moments. Like Taylor Swift really brought that world together in a lot of ways, and a lot of these people like Ed Sheeran and Shawn Mendes, you know, they all played with Taylor Swift at some point. They're all connected.
I mean, Shania Twain's around for 20 years, been poppy and country.
New album out too. Actually, heard that.
Yeah. I mean, I know maybe 3 Taylor Swift songs. So, but from the impression that I got, she started out country and then went pop really quick. So
yeah, she still has a lot of country to her. I think she's always been sort of poppy, but did have that definitely. I mean, she just, I guess, starting off in Nashville is going to make you country in general. Like if that's where she went to get famous. I mean, she's from Pennsylvania, but yeah, I couldn't have more respect for any. She's incredible. Like as far as as far as people goes too, she's incredible.
I respect her accomplishments. I like her better than Katy Perry, but neither one are my bailiwick. I mean, I'm
your style of music.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but I'm a progressive rock guy, and Russ, I know that you were bringing up on Facebook something about Styx, who, you know, Styx were like an American progressive rock band in the 70s. Them and Kansas and one or two others, and Chicago. Yeah,
out of Chicago. No.
I'm throwing down a flag, Mike. Okay,
no. He just fell for the wrong thing. I said out of Chicago, not and Chicago.
No. But even that to call Styx and Kansas progressive rock is not
early on. They were considered American
progressive rock.
Yeah, early on they were considered American progressive rock.
They're progressive pop rock.
No. Here's the thing. Okay, you said you just saw them 2 weeks ago.
I saw Styx and Aria Speedwagon 2 weeks ago with my wife.
So here's the thing.
Which were my two first concerts as a teenager. So I saw they were together. So they were right next to us in Atlantic City. So I had to go. Without
Dennis DeYoung, that concert is about 10% pop.
Yes.
And 90% rock, and you know that.
Yeah. Well, the new guy they have for Dennis,
Lawrence Gilman.
He is incredibly talented, and he does sound like Dennis DeYoung.
He does.
He's also really cheesy, so I'm not sure. I mean, he's watching this. I'm gonna give you my quick impression of the concert because it'll give kind of interesting. And then we can get into the Styx album. But go ahead, Mike. You can.
No. Isn't it Larry Gowan? Isn't Larry Gowan still?
Larry Gowan. Sorry, I missed.
Oh no. Yeah, Lawrence. Wait a second. The former assistant general manager of the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah. I
didn't know his name. I just know the guy.
No, Larry Gowan's Canadian. I think he's from Toronto, and he worked with John Anderson on a solo album years and years ago. But
he's cheesy, man. He brings a cheesy element to that band that's anything but progressive.
Oh, but come on.
Anything Tommy Shaw is doing and does, and the new song that I heard with Tommy Shaw doing for the new album, all goes back to their roots. So I disagree with that.
Come on.
No, I'm not saying. But I don't think he's really that much involved in it.
Nobody.
I don't think Dennis DeYoung was always the poppy part of Styx. Okay, he was always. I mean, he wrote.
It was a compilation. It was always Dennis DeYoung and Tommy Shaw writing the stuff, and then Dennis DeYoung sort of took him in a pop direction.
Yeah, Dennis DeYoung wanted to be Freddie Mercury. He was. Remember, he curled up his hair. He grew the mustache. He wore that. Sometimes he wore the tights and he did the half mic thing. I mean, that was. But early on,
no slight to him. I mean, even songs like "Too Much Time in My Hands" are still great songs. But when they went Mr. Roboto, that's when Dennis DeYoung blew up the band.
That was the Jump the Shark was Mr. Roboto. It was horrible.
Which is my point to how Styx is so not progressive.
Genesis did Invisible Touch.
Right.
Okay. Oh, no, that was the Jump the Shark moment for Genesis. I love them. That's my favorite band ever. But they jumped the shark.
No, man. So where to start? So first of all, Dennis DeYoung and Freddie Mercury. That's another. I mean,
I'm a big Queen fan, and I'm not saying there's any comparison.
Right. My whole point is this: that there's no. The whole point to this, you make my point in that Dennis DeYoung trying to be Freddie Mercury is Styx trying to be progressive. That is that.
No.
I love Styx. The Grand Illusion, Paradise Theater albums are. I saw them live probably 7 times as a kid.
I'm talking about early Styx, Equinox, Crystal Ball, Grand Illusion. They were trying to be progressive. Then they went pop.
Correct.
In the late 70s, early 80s, and then Mr. Roboto was the Jump the Shark moment. And then I couldn't tell you one song
they did. Their most progressive, Mr. Roboto.
No,
well, they're
but I'm saying we got to
just because they did a concept album doesn't mean they were progressive.
That's my point, and that's what you're saying about Grand Illusion. Grand Illusion is a concept album, but it's not a progressive rock album.
No, but I'm saying Mr. Roboto was a bad concept album.
We need people out there to comment on this. Mr. Roboto was a terrible concept album. I'm not disagreeing with that for a second.
I actually went to that tour. It was bad.
Yeah. I did. I saw him come out of the box in the back. Mr. Roboto.
Great progressive bands can make bad albums, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer making Love Beach. It sucked. It was terrible. So, but
it was so bizarre.
Anyway, let's just
believe that you, Mike, you two of my bigger prog heads that I know would even consider calling Styx a progressive rock band.
Early on,
they were absolutely.
They were not progressive rock. They have always written
for the Prog Rock podcast here on HockeyBuzz.com.
They've always written prog. They've written pop songs.
But wait, you tell me now. The one I heard was something called Radio Silence. That is not a pop song. No way.
No, the new album might be. The new album definitely is out there. Okay, now, and I haven't listened to it. I heard a couple songs that they played. They played that song, Radio Silence. I wasn't overly impressed by it. It was fine, but
it was okay, but it's not a pop song, is my point.
Oh no. That's this version of okay, yes, maybe, but this is like the entire. I mean, there were prog rock to me is defined by like musicianship, which Styx is great at what they do, but they're not great musicians. It's and I can say that I was in a band that was great at what they did, but we're not great musicians either. So I can say that with honestly, as long as I think of what you do, you're good at it. That's fine. Time signature changes, weird keys, none of that is in Styx.
I'm not saying they come up to the level of King Crimson or Yes or Genesis or Jethro Tull or any of these bands who we consider the artisans in progressive rock. I'm saying Kansas and Styx were a second generation that tried to meet up to that level. And, I thought there were some things that they did were really good, but then they went, like some of the other bands that I just mentioned, they went to the pop direction. And that's...
I think the best way for to call Styx is they are best with all of the parts together. When you talk about these other bands, yes, they're unbelievable, amazing musicians on their own. But right. Styx as a whole, when Styx is working, like with, and to me, that's no offense to Mr. Gowan, but when Tommy Shaw is singing, that's when you get all of that.
Oh, yeah, Shaw is Styx right now. And Mr. Gowan does a great job. He's an incredibly talented guy with an unbelievable voice. But he is also, when you watch him on stage, he's got the keyboard that spins around. He's very cheesy. Like it really cheeses it up to the point where, he's very lounge singer-ish, and there's a lot to it, and it's not at all progressive.
You know how big of a fan of Genesis I am. Are you telling me that walking around in the Magog costume or the Slipperman costume, as Peter Gabriel did in 1973 and 74, wasn't cheesy? I love it, but it's a little cheesy.
It wasn't cheesy because it was cheesy is like, to me, I think in music, I think of lounge singer. Like Peter Gabriel doing that was theatrical.
It was theatrical, but I think theatrical
wasn't cheesy, because most people wouldn't look at that and be like, "Wow, this is so cheesy." Most people are looking at that, "Wow, this is really weird." Like
it's weird and bizarre, and I consider sort of weird and bizarre cheesy.
I think cheesy are REO Speedwagon's big pop hits, but I was surprised when I covered them like 3-4 years ago, and their old rock stuff that I really wasn't familiar with, and when they brought out the Korg was really good.
I will tell you what, REO Speedwagon blew Styx out of the water in this concert, and I grew up with both of them. I liked both of them. I would have said back then that Styx was better. As a kid, I would have said Styx is a better band. REO Speedwagon came across as so much more legitimate to what they did. They did in this concert. My wife was so excited to see Styx. She had never seen either of these bands. My wife was not an REO Speedwagon fan at all. But she was so excited to see Styx. She grew up with Styx all the time. Their camps, stuff like that. There were, It Comes the Other Way. All these songs were anthems for her youth. She was so disappointed with how pretentious Styx appeared, and so blown away by REO Speedwagon's like legitimate, like they are a Midwest rock band still at this age. Even though they have some hits, but they do just get out there and play music. Styx was like.
I'll say this. I agree with what you're saying, but Tommy Shaw is completely down to earth and real.
Oh no, I like Tommy Shaw a lot. I do. I think the other DeYoung, right? There's another one.
James Young.
I'm not a big fan of his. He seems like
he's really good. He's like the glue guy, but he's a little showy. There's no question.
And he's a little into himself. Like
he has a purple guitar, right? I mean, I get it.
Into himself.
We have to do a separate podcast on this.
Yeah, all right, we gotta go. I want people in the comments to explain to Russ and Mike how Styx and Kansas are not progressive rock.
I didn't say Kansas. Mike did.
No, because Styx is closer to Chicago than they are. Yes, okay. Styx is way closer to Chicago. If you want to call, if you're putting Styx and Kansas in progressive rock, you're putting Chicago in there too, and you're almost.
No, you're not. No. Chicago was pop for their entire career, except for the very beginning. Maybe the first 2 Chicago albums was the only time they weren't pop.
Except for like the Chicago Transit Authority live album, where they took Spencer Davis's "I'm a Man" and they did a lot of stuff with horns.
Look, you might just say
progressive.
Post Terry Kath, Chicago is completely pop.
Agreed. With Terry.
However many albums that is.
Yeah, I think it was 6 or 7. With Terry Cat, they were sort of bluesy.
All right,
yeah, because I realized there were probably more than a few. But
I think ELO is directly influenced by the Beatles.
Yeah,
and the Beatles are the influence for almost every progressive rock band. So I would say ELO is a sort of a second generation progressive band.
ELO and Styx are very comparable to me.
Right.
They are, absolutely.
And that's fine, and I think ELO is a little more talented than Styx, but I think that
I would say so.
Yeah,
but
that's really anyway. This show we got to go. But all right,
Jeff Lynne. I'll just say this: Jeff Lynne is amazing. If people didn't realize he wasn't amazing, then when the Traveling Wilburys came around, that's when you could realize he was amazing because he was the driving force behind that. Yet there were so many great pieces in that band.
If you don't think ELO is progressive, listen to a song called 10-538 Overture and tell me that's not progressive.
That's more progressive than anything Styx ever did. I agree with you on that. I know that song, but that's not like there's nothing about.
Wait. Renegade is a progressive song. That was never a pop hit. It never was.
I think Crystal Ball and Sweet Madam Blue are progressive.
They are. Here's the thing. Right. Renegade, when it first came out, was a really good, hard-driving song. Renegade got
a rock classic. It's a rock classic.
It got that.
It got bigger over time. It was one of
No. It got that rep from a TV show, and I don't remember what TV show was playing it. No, it was from the Steelers, playing it at Steelers games. That's when it all of a sudden became like pop, but it never was pop. Never, ever. That album is not pop.
Was it the theme song for BJ and the Bear or something?
There's like one pop song on that whole album. Was it Cornerstone? I think there's one pop song on that.
Yeah.
Babe is on the album, right?
Yeah, Babe is the one pop song. And that was they had those songs. No, it wasn't Babe. It actually was something else on that album.
Styx actually goes sometimes into like the air supply world.
It was Light. It might have been Light Up.
Yeah.
Styx and R.E.S. Speedwagon can venture into the air supply world too. Like that's
come on.
They totally can.
Let's start the show.
Respect to Air Supply as well, who were great songwriters too. But I just think that anyway, let's move on. I want comments, folks. I want people to comment and put
tomorrow we'll talk about the Little River Band and Crowded House.
God. All right. Hello, Hockey World. I don't know. I gotta take a drink before you start the show. Sorry, 1 second. It's just insane.
Actually, Renegade was not on Cornerstone. It was on Pieces of Eight. Pieces of Eight is not a pop album at all.
I'll just say this, Zach. If I win the Powerball tonight, which is $700 million, I am starting a hostile takeover of HockeyBuzz.com.
You're welcome to it. All right, I will join you in that hostile takeover. Okay, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017.
I'm billionaire Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen, and if I win the lottery, I will buy a progressive rock channel somewhere.
There you go. And I'm Eklund, and you need to be a billionaire to start a pay internet sports website. And you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. Today we're going to get into the Arizona Coyotes. But I want to start the show with this question. Is this just posturing, or are you Athanasiou? All right. All right, so
talk about cheese.
Try the veal. I'm in the Catskills.
Right, okay, so so Andreas Athanasiou is looking like he's heading to the KHL and perhaps the Canadian Olympic team. And this is a really interesting story. I think it's getting some play today, but I think it's going to get more play as time goes on, because this is a player who last year, put in 18 goals, played in like 68 games, barely played in those games. Like he was the playing time on this guy was terrible. Like he did not. Obviously, the coaching staff is not a big fan of Athanasiou.
Right. Well, I think Kenny Holland and the Detroit Red Wings are shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, you saw the news earlier in the week. Henrik Zetterberg has announced that he's probably going to retire after next season, after the 18-19 season. So, you've got a limited window with him. They're really a team on the rebuild, and the core of that team right now are the Anthony Manthas, the Dylan Larkins, and Athanasiou. And he had a good year. He's one of the fastest skaters in the NHL, and he made, I think, around $900,000 on his entry-level deal. he's in a decent position to. I mean, I think he deserves a pretty decent raise, maybe over $2 million. Maybe close to $2.5 million on depending on what they want to sign him on a bridge deal or whatever. But if Detroit is not on the same page there, and he doesn't have a lot of leverage. It's sort of like Russ. It's sort of like the Nikita Zadorov situation in Colorado. He said he was going to go to the KHL if they didn't sign him by July 31st. It's now August 23rd, and he's still sitting waiting for the contract.
But he doesn't have 18 goals to his credit. Like, he doesn't have – here's the thing. Pre-draft for Athanasiou, what I kept hearing was doesn't play a complete game. Okay, I get it. Even at the age of 23, he doesn't play a complete game. I get it. But his speed is great, and his scoring ability is good. And if you were the Red Wings and you got 18 goals out of him with not a lot of ice time, there's no room for him in your lineup? You're telling me where – I mean, I'd like to know where they're getting the 18 goals from. I mean, he's not a Red Wings guy in the sense that if they're going back to, hey, you can't play for the Red Wings because we play a certain way. Okay, but he's worth something if you sign and trade him.
Well, what I don't understand What I don't understand is the recent trend with the Red Wings sort of cannibalizing on their own prospects. We know the internal stuff that was coming out regarding Mantha over the last couple of years. The Jimmy Devellano, he should be traded, he should be part of a package to get somebody back. And then, I think Mantha last year started to show how good of a player he really is. Athanasiou, there's some gaps in his game, but I think he's a player that you can build on, that can improve over time. Dylan Larkin had a bad sophomore year. I fully expect him to come back and be a good player. Guys like Nyquist and Tatar. I mean, there's talent there in Detroit, but I don't understand this tendency in the organization to really be critical about some of the players that actually have talent there. And to me, that doesn't do them any good.
No, it's really bad. And this player really just, I mean, if you look through his goals. I mean, the guy. Just watch the highlight film I put on my blog. There's a spectacular player in there.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, but again, the league is becoming you've got to play a complete game league, and he's not going to be that guy. But not everybody in this league is that guy. And if he got more ice time, he could score 25 goals.
Right.
No, I completely agree. Now, when you want to see there are how many players in the NHL? There's roughly, I mean, the players that played last year, there's like somewhere in the neighborhood of 900, I think, or something like that actually played last year.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go to Athanasiou's numbers, okay, there's two players that are shockingly low on time on ice. And so Andreas Athanasiou, where do you think he is ranked from 1 to, say, 900 in ice time?
Like 750.
Not quite that bad, but
600.
No, so 537, okay? Yeah. 537. So that you're talking about the same ice time as Clark MacArthur got on average when he played. No, not obviously Clark MacArthur was a good player.
6 games that he played, yeah.
Yeah, but but when you look at these type of players who didn't play a lot, there's a couple guys on this list right here, and I got to bring this up because this is really interesting to me, that all sort of share the same quality. Like these players, I've always noticed this around the 13-minute mark who can score points. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring this up and see if we can. This is really cool, I think. Because the players on here, a lot of them share the same traits. So let's see how well we can see this. But
right.
All right, I'm gonna throw something out. So basically, okay, so Athanasiou is right here, 537. Go down 2 from him, Alex Chiasson. Okay, we're still talking about Alex Chiasson's in the running right now. He had put up 24 points. Go a little bit further down, Burmistrov.
Well, actually, before you get to Burmistrov, now William Karlsson is revered because of his all-around game. But still, I'd rather have the 18 goals. Like, it just –
Yeah. I mean, look at some of these players, like Anthony Duclair, another player that we talk about a lot in the same kind of light. You know what I mean? Michael Raffle, another one.
Duclair is very similar, although I think Duclair is a better player. I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're very, very similar.
Well, I mean, what all these have in common is that Yeah, all these players have in common is either offensively or defensively there are shortcomings, and that limits their time on ice. Now, like I said, I mean, Athanasiou is what 22, 23 years old. I mean, he can improve. Now, it's a question of whether the coach in Detroit who had him in Grand Rapids is a believer in Athanasiou, and if he's not, then like Russ said, you sign him and you deal him and you get somebody who's on the same page. But I don't think it helps anybody, the player or the Red Wings, for him to go to the KHL and then play for Team Canada in the Olympics and miss an entire year of NHL competition. I think it's detrimental to his career if he does that.
Well, I think so too. All right, Dylan Strome, another one, right?
7 games. Yeah, you can't.
No, but he only played 7 games. That's not a good.
I know, but still, though, my point is, players like this kind of player has to play more than 13 minutes to make a match to matter, because they're not going to be the kind of player that's going to work if they play limited ice time like that.
Sam Gagner played 13 minutes, less than 14 minutes a game, and had 50 points, which means
that is the craziest thing. I saw that too, and I was just like that. Again, we all think of Gagner was such a hit.
He's a specialist, Dak. He's a power play guy.
Jimmy Vesey, okay. Jimmy Vesey.
That's the other thing. Yeah, Vesey. He's a rookie. He gets some power play time too. Second power play. He got some first power play stuff at the beginning, if you remember.
Jay Beagle is not a big offensive player, and on a team like Washington, he averaged a little over 13 minutes. He was mostly a fourth liner for that team. So I
doubt Athanasiou got any power play time at all.
Right.
So this is, I mean, to me, although I really think I do put him in very much in the same ballpark as Duchene. I agree with that completely, and I think that the Red Wings have to get this done. I don't think they can afford. Now, the only thing I can say about this that is interesting is when I was talking to people about what the heck was going on with us. I was trying to talk to people in Detroit about this, why he was getting so little ice time, and were they going to buck up and sign him? I didn't get a very good feeling that they were. I got a really strong feeling that they think he's overrated, and that I guess I don't know if it's a defensive or a personality or whatever that's keeping him out of the lineup, but it feels like something else is. Yeah. And also the other thing I will say is that this could be the kind of player that would make sense in a Matt Duchene trade. Like if I'm Colorado, this is the kind of thing that I would be looking for.
Yeah, but the problem here. Let's extrapolate the Detroit situation into the Duchene situation. The Red Wings do not have a defenseman anywhere close to being of the value, unless you're throwing Danny DeKeyser in the deal, which I don't think would be something that they would want to do. That would make Colorado want to do that deal. And frankly, I don't think Detroit is a Matt Duchene away from being a playoff team. This is a team that, if they don't know it yet, they'll know it pretty soon, is in need of a rebuild. They're not a team that was a Steven Stamkos away from being a contender, or if there is a John Tavares sweepstakes next July, is not a John Tavares away from being a contender. They don't have a number one goaltender. Their defense is thin, and they have some underachieving forwards, but I think there's talent there. So this is a team that needs that reset or rebuild, and not to go out and make a deal desperately to get themselves back in the playoffs. And the only reason that they might do that is because they're going into a new building and they want some excitement. But I don't think that's a reason why you should do it.
Here's the funny thing. So VC had 11 even strength goals. But right now, Athanasiou in his career, based on the limited playing time, because the year before he had 9 goals and only 9 minutes of ice time, his shooting percentage was 17 and 15. Like, it's great.
I know. He has scored some killer goals. I mean, he's like
he has.
And I know that a lot of these, some people are going to say like he killed the Flyers, because he did kill the Flyers.
He did. But sign him and trade him to Vegas. He would be a first or second liner on Vegas.
Yeah, and he would be exciting. But here's a guy that I actually think the KHL might make sense for him because of and I usually don't think that at all, especially with Ontario kids, because they usually don't really want to go to the KHL. But the KHL. The combination of, go make money in the KHL, put up some really serious stats, because that game, they'll let him just do his thing, which will probably be good for him. I mean, good for him numbers-wise, not necessarily good for him development-wise.
Well,
like you said, Mike. But then playing in the Olympics, if this kid plays in the Olympics, he's got a serious potential to make his mark to the point where he could ask for a lot of money.
Well,
but then they still don't have to pay him.
Right, but this is the thing. I mean, right now, Detroit qualified him. So if he goes to the KHL, they still retain his rights. He's not able. This is sort of a Radulov situation. He goes to the
exactly
KHL.
what it is.
Yeah, and now the thing is that there is a precedent in terms of a player going to the KHL and it helping them and improving them, and that was Mark Giordano. He went from Calgary, he went to the KHL for a year, I think, came back and was a much more well-rounded player. I'm not saying that there couldn't be some benefits of him going to the KHL, but I'm saying from the Detroit perspective, you pay this guy.
Yeah.
He scored for you. You pay him. And if you don't like him, you pay him and then you move him. But you pay him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think you have to. I think you have to pay him and keep him here. And I think this really could just be negotiations, but we're going to see. I mean,
it probably is. And if I'm Detroit, I look at Vegas and I take one of their defensemen.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
No, we should touch on the college free agents act because there's a lot of stuff is coming up on them. Russ, the Alex Kerfoot. Of course, the reports are confusing and contradictory. One report we hear is it's the Rangers and the Canucks, and that he's been talking to Vancouver. He's from the Vancouver area. And then Darren Dreger reported that the Islanders and San Jose are involved. So, I'm
sure they're involved. They are. But the idea is, if I'm Alex Kerfoot and I'm looking at the Rangers or Islanders, there will be a little more opportunity on the Islanders. The Rangers are a way better team, and the Rangers have Jimmy Vesey, who he played on the same line with at Harvard.
Right.
So to me, I don't see how he's going to choose the Islanders over the Rangers. Now, the Sharks, they also could use him maybe on a third line, but not right away. They're too much of a veteran team. Like, he's going to have to play in Worcester for a while until he shows them that he's ready to come up, because the Sharks are very tight with letting rookies start a season. Other than Vlasic, it's you can't come up with that many that have ever done it.
What do all four of these teams have in common? The one thing they have in common is they all have veteran centers that are on the last years of their contract. Thornton in San Jose, Henrik Sedin in Vancouver, Tavares with the Islanders, and the Rangers. They traded Stepan, and they have a vacancy up the middle. So he's looking at situations where he's going to be able to maximize his opportunity to get into the NHL, and that's a smart thing for him to do. But honestly, I think the best chance for him to play in the NHL right away might be the Rangers.
Yeah, I do too. I think, and I'm not saying that because I'm close to the Rangers and keep an eye on them. What I'm saying is, what I saw in Harvard is a really special bond between him and Vesey. It was really great. Because, look, Kerfoot is not a superstar or star player, but he is that kind of player that works well off of another player he has chemistry with, and he already has that with Vesey. And to me, that's a valuable thing, because that could almost be a line for the Rangers. He's a pretty strong, pretty gutsy kid. So I think he would have a chance to make the team, and I think a kid like Vesey could bring him along the same way he was brought along last year. I think that is his best chance. I do, because I think that's where he might have the most success. You go to one of those other places, you don't know who you're going to play with. Now, look, San Jose is loaded with college players. I'm sure Kerfoot is very familiar with a lot of guys in San Jose. But that said, not as familiar as Vesey.
Now,
how many times, though, have we seen? I mean, we haven't seen very often the college or even Canadian juniors line combinations translate into the NHL. I can't even it's one of those things. Yeah, a great it's great when you're playing against the teams that Harvard was playing against, but it's could be very different. I mean,
well, but we've seen it after the lockout year. The Buffalo Sabres brought up an entire line from the AHL, and it worked. Now, yeah, you could say it's the AHL, but it's not like it's that much of a difference. There's a difference between college and the AHL. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, from a perspective of having chemistry with a line mate, that's a situation where I can come up with right away. Is after the lockout, more than one team did it, but the Sabres were most successful.
Yeah. It always amazes me that we don't see it more often. And I would think that we should see it, but this is the case where for some the NHL definitely. I've talked to people about it, and they really. I get a sense that there's almost this attitude, like, that it works against you, like that and I think that's unfair, but I think that's what I get. The scouts say, oh, you were good with him, and yeah, that was college, and they're not going to, it almost works against him. Like if he was just a player, maybe if he didn't play with VC, he might have a better shot sometimes. That's how
I don't know. I think that NHL people, they look at situations like, and I could be getting the name wrong, but remember back in the 80s, the Blackhawks picked up a guy named Denny Cyr, CYR.
Yeah.
He was the line mate of Denny Savard in junior. And they thought, okay, that combination clicked in junior, it'll click in the NHL. The problem was Denny Cyr wasn't an NHL player, and it didn't work. But in a situation like, I remember Oklahoma City, which is Edmonton's minor league team, during the lockout, they played Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins together, and then when they came up to the NHL, they played them on the same line. So, and I'm sure Garth Snow is hoping that this combo situation works, because I think one of the motivating factors for them getting Jordan Eberle is because Jordan Eberle was on the line with John Tavares at the World Junior, and it was a 2008, Russ. It was,
yeah.
That was I think one of the motivations for them getting Eberle is because that combination clicked in the World Junior 9 years ago. So I don't know. All I know is that, Kerfoot seems to be looking for the best opportunity to get in the NHL right away. I don't know whether that's the mindset of Will Butcher, because there is talk. There was a picture a couple days ago that had him in the Denver airport carrying around a Buffalo Sabres equipment bag. Now that doesn't mean anything. But if you look at the Sabres situation, they don't have any room on their blue line in terms of making the NHL right now. So, there's talk that Will Butcher is willing to go to the American Hockey League and work his way to the NHL, which means, teams like Buffalo might have a chance with him.
Well, I got two things. First one is I have the best example of where line mates worked. The 1959-60 Guelph Bitmores had Rod Gilbert and Jean Rattel, and they were the goal of game line for the Rangers. Now, people will say now, oh, they're Hall of Famers, but you didn't know they were Hall of Famers then. You just knew they were really great junior players. And so they did come up at the same time, and they played together forever. So that is a situation where it worked. For Will Butcher, if they went to the Sabres, I think the Sabres would stick him in the AHL to start. But I also think the Sabres would look at him and say, hey, if you prove yourself, there's some things that could happen around here with our roster, and we might give you a call before you know it. And I think that's possible. I think if the Sabres got him and all of a sudden he looked great in Rochester, then I think you could see a trade happening, and maybe they would trade one of their defensemen at that time.
Well, with the Sabres, it would probably be, because Zach Bogosian has underwhelmed since he came to Buffalo. Josh George is in the final year of his contract. They brought in Beaulieu. They have McCabe. They have Ristolainen. They have Scandella. And that's not even factoring in Antipin, who they brought in over from the KHL. So you're talking 8 deep there. There's no way, unless Butcher lights it up at training camp, if he signs with the Sabres, that he's making the NHL in his rookie year. He would probably go to the AHL. He'd have to play well, and he'd have to depend on guys like Bogosian continuing to struggle, or Georges, and maybe Georges would be either traded or waived. But I don't think there's a realistic path for Will Butcher to make the NHL as a rookie if he signs with Buffalo. Other teams, I think he has a chance.
Like I said, Vegas is his best spot to definitely make it right away. You can't do any wrong there. Really, you can learn on the fly in Vegas. That's a good example. But I do think there's a few other teams that he could make. And right now, remember when I said I thought it would take a few weeks? I think it will, because I think there are just so many teams interested in him because he is a defenseman with offensive talent who could run a power play. Now, he won't be running anybody's power play, even Vegas, but he could be a second-tier power play guy for sure.
I think he tops out as a top 4 defenseman, but that's after
that's after a while.
Right, that's after a while. Right now, he's a bottom-pairing guy or in the AHL.
Bottom-pairing guy, putting him on a power play.
What I've heard is that this is taking longer because there's still teams out there looking at options like Matt Duchene and James Van Riemsdyk. I mean, so you're going to see like some of these players, and this is still going on. So
I'm not so sure how the forwards figure unless
not more with the first guy we're talking about.
Kerfoot, yeah,
but of course, there are plenty of. I mean, there aren't really that many great defensemen left left out there, but there are some really serviceable ones. I think if he goes to Vegas has to do something like they have to go out there and sign a veteran defenseman or two. I think that's where I think Vegas is lacking. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet, really.
But they have 11 defensemen on their roster right now, so
I know they don't have the guy that I don't know.
And they're not going to. They're an expansion team.
They're an expansion team, but it's very, very strange for McPhee to be going in with this young of a team because just even though he knows you're not going to win, but you want to put like some sort of winning.
They want this team to be they want this team to be entertaining. They've stockpiled a bunch of guys on 1 year with 1 year left in their contracts. They're probably going to trade a majority of them before the trade deadline. This is, play well, try hard, but we're going to finish in the bottom 5 and get a high draft pick. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's the realistic outlook. Guys like Shea Theodore, maybe Colin Miller, you're building around younger defensemen. But this team isn't built to win, and they're not going to make deals to make them win more games because that's
not about winning. It's about if you have any players there that you want to go forward with at all. They need to be around veteran players to learn how to do what they're doing. I mean,
I think Theodore is one of those guys. He's a building block. He's not a guy who you're trading at the deadline.
Right. So, but you want those guys you want to have some players to come in there and teach them the ways of the NHL. It's what Edmonton did wrong, and it's what continues to haunt them. It takes. I just think it's crazy that they don't have any of those players. I mean, if you're going to just get rid of all these players, then you're really just putting together a fake team for a year.
Well, I mean, they may keep some of them who want to be around, but I'm talking. You look at their lineup right now: Jason Garrison, Lucas Spiza, Clayton Stoner, Braden McNabb, and Derek England. 5 players, all UFAs. I would be shocked if one of them stays past the NHL trade deadline. One.
Yeah, me too.
They're assets.
I know they're assets, but I don't know. I guess unless you're just not building at all.
But Eck, you can trade them, and if there's somebody who you like, you can re-sign them the following summer.
Of course. Yeah. But I agree. I think that's of course true. But I think that at the end of the day, I would kind of more expecting McPhee to go with a couple good-hearted veterans that could teach younger players how to do it.
It's not a bad idea, but I think they probably look at Brandstrom and say if he's going to make the team, he may not need that.
Right.
That's possible.
I mean, NHL players who don't need it. I mean, that's like even Austin Matthews. I think these guys they need that. They need that. It's just
the question is how many youngsters will make the Vegas Golden Knights, and more than likely Cody Glass, Brandstrom, and Suzuki are not making the team this year.
Yeah, Suzuki's not going to make it. I can pretty much tell you that out of the gate. I think Cody Glass they will let play in some preseason games,
right?
So fans can see him in Vegas, and they might do the same for Suzuki too.
Right.
I think they might push the limit on that. Certainly, Brandstrom's going to play in the preseason. After that, I don't know.
Yeah,
right, but the young guy. If you look at the young guys who I would project to make the team, Theodore has been around the Ducks the last couple years, so he's been exposed to playing with guys like Getzlaf and Perry.
Yeah,
Shipachev is a veteran of the KHL.
Yeah.
You've got a couple younger guys like Halla, Lindbergh. They've had a taste of the NHL. So, I mean, they're gonna get experience by playing. So right now, I don't think it's necessary to have those teachers around. It's when you bring those young kids up at 19 or 20 that you want those veteran guys around. And honestly, that's what happened with the Leafs this year. Only in the second year did they bring in the teachers. They brought in Marlowe, they brought in Hainsey, they brought in Dominic Moore. Last year, they were concerned with one thing: getting them playing time. And they concentrated on that. And the leadership were guys like Leo Komarov and Matt Hunwick, but the real leader was Mike Babcock. And now they realize that they need leadership on the ice as well. So I think that's what will happen with Vegas down the line. 1 year, 2 years, that's going to be the case where they need those veteran guys.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree. All right, let's get on to Arizona because we're running out of time here, and I do want to get into them quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so today we talked about Anaheim the other day. Today we're going to get into Arizona. A little background on Arizona from last year. The Arizona, formerly known as the Phoenix Coyotes, started last year for us, and they were basically the 27th in the NHL, 12th in the West, 6th in the Pacific, 27th in goals for, and 28th in goals against. So that's not a great combination. Neither, and then this team does have what looks like the beginning of a half decent defense going, and they do have a lot of young players who have, and they have a potential this year of, 3 players that could really come into their own, in my opinion, in Clayton Keller, Dylan Strum, and Tobias Ryder. Like, I think these are 3 guys that I could see. All Clayton Keller, is a lot of people are looking at him as possibly a Rookie of the Year candidate if he does what he can do. There was an interesting article I read. I can't remember where I read it, but someone who said, will the combination of Keller, Strom, and Ryder score more than Nylander and Marner did this year? So 3/2.
No.
It could be close. I think
Keller's going to have a tremendous year, but I'm going to go no.
Nylander and Marner combined for 122 points. So you're looking at 3 guys that have to get around 40 points. So it could be tight. It's an interesting bet we could have later on in time. They made a couple key acquisitions and subtractions. Subtractions, they lost Radim Verbata, who don't worry, Coyotes fans, he'll be back, I'm sure, at some point. And they lost Timu Pokkanen, who, I never really did anybody really remember that he was actually there. I still think he's a player that the Red Wings lost at some point. Major additions. They added Jarmelson, who is a great defenseman, has been a great defenseman, lots of experience. That's the kind of guy I'm talking about, that, you bring in to help the young guys. They bring in Derek Stepan and Antti Ranta in their big trade right before the draft, where they gave up their 7th overall pick. And, which turned out to be Elias Anderson. So I like that trade a lot. It was a sign of a new era in Arizona, so to speak, where they were actually going to go out and bring in players to make, to try to make them better, as opposed to just continually waiting on all their prospects. So they're trying to compete this year. I think this is safe to say. They've, Mike Smith has gone too, as another major subtraction that I forgot about.
And Connor Murphy.
And Connor Murphy, right. A lot of people are out there, picking Arizona to be maybe slightly better. I don't know. I don't think they're a playoff team yet, but people still have them a little bit better. They're obviously going to be better than Vegas. And will he be better than Colorado is a big question. I think that's still out there.
Russ,
but how far are they going to go? Russ, go ahead.
All right. So are they better than Colorado? It's going to depend on Antti Ranta. If you're going to make me say so now, I'll say yes, they're better than Colorado. But am I really saying a lot with that? I don't know. Looking at the team, if we look at them defensively first, they're definitely better. Look, there's still some holes there. Clendening's not great. Connaughton's not great. But, Goligoski, Jarmelson, Chychrun, and OEL, that's a top 4. And then you still have Luke Shen. That's better than it's been in the last few years. So I think they've had a nice revamping on the blue line. Now, on offense, if they went with a Stepan Domi Duclair line, I think you'd really have something there. And I think if I'm the coach, that's exactly what I do, because there's familiarity there with Stepan and Duclair, and he could be the guy, like X says, to sort of show the other guys, not that they need a lot, but they could use a little. And I think that would be a hell of a line. I think the most overlooked double-digit goal scorer in the league might be Brendan Perlini. He had 14 goals in very little time. Another guy with a 15 shot percentage, and he's a big guy. So that's a guy who I think will come on in this year. I think Lawson Krause will give a better year. Mm-hmm. The thing about it is, I don't know how good the goaltending is going to be. I really don't know if Antti Ranta can be a number 1 guy. He's not going to have a shutdown D. He's just got a better D. He's got a few guys that can play hardened defense, but not enough. And so to me, that's the big thing. Like they have enough pieces on offense, but their offense will fall apart if the blue line can't do their job. And that's the part where I think it's going to fall apart for Phoenix on playing actual defense. And maybe we'll see. I think they'll score more points. I don't know if they're going to stop more goals. That's the issue.
They're so heavily dependent on young guys coming through. And last year, Domi and Duclair took a step back from the rookie year when they really played well. And I expect them to have sort of a bounce back because I think they're both talented. Although, maybe Duclair was on the way out with Tippett as the coach. Maybe he gets a second chance now with Tocchet there. But I mean, but really, other than Stepan, I mean, and Jamie McGinn, who had one good year between Buffalo and Anaheim, they're totally reliant on Krause, Keller, Perlini, Strome, Dvorak. I mean, there's a lot of talent there. We know, Russ, because they've won Memorial Cups.
I think Keller's going to be a Calder finalist.
Yeah, I think so too. He's going to get the playing time. He's probably going to be the number 2 center behind Stepan. Yeah. So I mean, he'll get the opportunity. And I'm encouraged about the defense. The injury to Chychrun is a concern because we don't know how long he's going to be out. But you've got 3 veteran guys there in Ekman-Larsson, Goligoski, and Yarmulson. Yarmulson and Ekman-Larsson are going to play 30 minutes a night. The way they probably will, because I mean Ekman-Larsson does that all the time anyway, and Yarmulson's probably going to be his defense partner. And so I bet you anything they're going to play like power play and penalty kill and match up, shut down defensive pairing. But I think you're dead on when it comes to their main problem. I'm not sure that Antti Raanta is a number 1. I know that he played well with the Rangers, but the Rangers are a good defensive club. And I know he played well, but it's a big difference between being a number 2 and coming in and playing 25 to 30 games and being the guy who plays 50 to 55. I actually think
last year was the most games he ever started with 26.
I actually think Louis Domingue is a pretty decent goaltender. I don't think he's going to get – they're going to find out whether Raanta is the starter or not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, are they better than Vegas? Yes. Are they better than Colorado? Yes. But I challenge you to tell me of a team, maybe Vancouver, that they could be better than. That means either 11th or 12th in the West. So that's basically where they are. But I would rather have the team this year and, move on from Shane Doan, move on from some of the veteran guys, and play the youngsters, because I think that's the only pathway for this team to be a success 2 or 3 years down the road. I think they're still going to be 11th or 12th in the West, but I'm interested in seeing what these young kids do.
Yeah. If I'm a fan and they're losing 5-4, 4-3 games, I probably could live with it.
Yeah, another sneaky move that they added, I forgot about this totally, was Nick Cousins.
Nick Cousins was a good move too.
It was $1 million contract, and Cousins well worth $1 million. I mean,
yes.
He's going to score points. He's going to score goals for you. He's going to score points for you. He's a good player. He's a solid guy on the team.
I could have ruined that for him when I ran into him at the volleyball net, but luckily he came out.
Yeah, I mean, I like Nick Cousins.
I do too.
I think he's going to be. I'm glad he's getting a chance where
he can pop in like 12, 13 goals. Wouldn't shock me.
He'll be a solid third line player. Probably see some power play time for them occasionally.
Yep.
He's got some natural scoring ability. He's big. He's a solid. He's
got good speed though.
Got good speed. Yeah, they have the makings of something here.
But this is the one thing. Tocchet was given a lot of credit after the Barry Melrose disaster in Tampa, going in there and giving Stamkos the playing time. Now you would think, okay, of course he's going to give Stamkos the playing time. Well, Barry Melrose was playing him on the 3rd or 4th line and doing things that were pretty stupid. And Tocchet said, okay, I'm going to give the young kid a chance. He worked with the kids in Tampa. It wasn't a success, but and he did the same thing in Pittsburgh as an assistant coach. His main job is going to be getting the most and teaching these young kids. And I think there's a possibility he could do that. It's going to be interesting to see what he does.
I guess the one prospect that people are talking about is Christian Fischer, who came up last year at the end of the year.
He's pretty good. There's so many better prospects though.
Yeah, but he had this really crazy thing. Remember where he scored like 3 goals in 7 games for them, and there's a lot of people who think that he's one of these. It seems to be a name I keep hearing, but I know he's at the top.
There's Nick Merkley, there's Ryan McGinnis, there's they've got 2 or 3 other prospects that will be in the mix, and they also have Zach Ronaldo in the minors there, Russ. So maybe he'll come back to the NHL.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. We'll see. We'll see where they go with that one. I definitely think that's a really bad idea. So I think a big question has to be Tocchet. Like you mentioned him briefly. I mean, is Tocchet an NHL head coach? I'm still not convinced that he is. I think he's a great assistant coach. I think he's a great guy, great person, great. But as far as head coaches goes, I mean, that's a different kind of mentality for head coaches and assistant coaches, and that's the one thing I have about it, especially young players. The one thing he does do is obviously bring leadership that he's played before, and the fact he's an ex-NHL player, it works to his advantage with this group. But I think there's still. I'm really not convinced that Tocchet's going to be the person to take this team. But that will be the key to see, I think, as far as things go. And then I think they were not going to be as good as Colorado. I'm going to go on the opposite end of that with you guys. I actually think Colorado, for all the craziness, will have some bit of a rebound this year.
I don't see how with their defense.
Their defense is hideous.
I don't see how either, but it just every instinct of mine of following hockey for all these years tells me that Colorado is going to be better than we all think.
So you're saying Varlamov will have the best year of his career because that's the only way.
Yeah, no, or somehow some defense just step up and just find another level that we don't know they have. There's going to be something. This is the way it never works like it should in hockey with teams like Colorado. We'll talk about Colorado when we get there.
Yeah, I will say this about Arizona is I've got Phoenix on my mind. I'm not sure why.
I know why.
The thing with Arizona is, though, if this Chychrun injury lingers,
yes, it'll
blow up their defense too.
Yeah. Because you have a top 4 set up there, like you were saying.
Yeah.
OEL and Yarmolson, Goligoski and Chychrun. If you have that top 4, then you have basically 45 minutes a night taken care of, and then the rest of the defense can be on the bottom pairing. If you're short Chychrun or he's limited in any way because of his injury, then you're forcing Luke Schenn to be a top 4, and Luke Schenn is not a top 4 in this league.
No.
So so I think that would make them considerably weaker. If they have that top 4, they might have the ability to stick in the race as long as possible, and if they get good goaltending, be in the mix around February or March. But unless these kids really come to the forefront, I don't see a pathway to them to contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah, NHL.com in their preview for them had an interesting thing that they think they could potentially have 9 players in their starting lineup on opening night who are younger than 22.
Yep.
Well, that's definite. They're set up for that.
And
when have we had a team in the NHL that's that young?
It's a long time.
Yeah, call that the Toronto model because that's what they did. Yeah. 7 rookies, 7 rookies, sometimes 9 on some nights. So,
right. But here's the thing. With the exception of the Leafs, how many of those teams succeed in that season?
Not very many, and the Leafs had Babcock.
Right.
And Marner and
but Babcock is a huge deal.
A huge deal. But Marner and Matthews helps too. I mean, that's like
sure.
Well, the talent. I mean, yes, the talent.
Marner, Matthews, and Nylander. These are crazy players. So
listen, I think Keller is every bit as good as. Listen, I think Keller's every bit as good as Marner, maybe better. So I don't think that's a big issue. I think it's really a difference of Rick Tocchet or Mike Babcock.
And Keller is in a prominent position. He's a center. Marner can affect a game, but he is a winger, and that limits his effectiveness.
Yes.
I had somebody ask a question the other day. Russ, I'm going to pass on to you. They wanted me to ask about this. Remember that now they brought this up. They wanted to know if Nolan Patrick, in your opinion, is going to be a better player than Mitch Marner.
Well, I think over time he could he'll be the better all-around player. I think there'll be years where Marner might score more points. But again, Patrick is the kind of guy now, again, on the radio yesterday I was hearing like Ryan Getzlaf. Don't compare him to Ryan Getzlaf because to me, there's things about Getzlaf's game that I like better than Patrick and vice versa. I don't think they're an equivalent. I don't think there's an equivalent there. But what I do think is, with his hard play in the corners, he is going to be a guy, not like Eric Lindros, but a guy who's hard to play against, who you're not going to necessarily, when he's at his full man strength, want to have that corner battle against. He is going to win a lot of battles in the offensive zone, and that will set up a lot of things for his teammates. I think he will score 30 goals, 35 goals for sure most years. But again, Marner playing with Matthews until Patrick is playing with someone even better than Konechny or Giroux at this state of the game probably isn't going to have the same kind of points for a while as a Marner. But I think most years it'll be pretty tight. I do, and I really do think the world of Patrick.
Yeah, I do have to say this about Marner was the driving offensive force on the line that he was with in Toronto. He was the guy. He was the creative guy. Yeah. Bozak had a good year. Van Riemsdyk scored almost 30 goals. But anybody who watched the Leafs 82 games last year and in the playoffs knows that Marner was the driving offensive force on that line. So, Keller is in a position to be that because he's a center and because he's very creative. But Marner did pretty well as a rookie in Toronto, and I think barring any kind of injury, he's going to have that kind of year again.
But here's my point, I guess. Patrick, let's say he starts the year with Philly, and he has great vision too. He really does.
Yes.
But who's gonna be on his line? Will it be him, Couturier, and the end part is probably going to be what sets him back a little point wise, as compared to like if he were playing with, let's just say he could play with anybody. You could put him with Konechny, and I don't know who would be on the other side.
I keep hearing that they're going to put him with Simmons. That's what I keep hearing.
With who?
Wayne Simmons.
Oh, with Simmons. Yeah, with Simmons. Actually, either way, that's great. If you put him with Simmons, you will get a lot out of him, even in a rookie season. You will. That would be perfect if they did that.
You see that as like a cycling like Lindros Leclerc type thing, Yeah. But not obviously not Lindros Leclerc, but the idea of a tough two-headed cycling, because both of those guys are. Simmons is what we've always said before, one of the best players along the boards in the NHL. You can get him, you can, and Patrick has that same type of ability that
but you won't be asking him to do it at 18, which is good.
Right. And Simmons can go get some of the pucks and take some of the attention away, because Simmons it does gather a lot of attention now. He's become a star player in the league, so that'll help. He needs somebody who's going to make it not so that Patrick is not the focal point that they're trying to check. You don't want him to be the guy they're checking.
And here's the thing. Again, it was brought up. I don't think the Flyers will do it, but I did bring up Couturier just in case they do decide to start him on the wing, because anything's possible with Dave Haxtell.
No, that's very true. We are running out of time, guys, but I do appreciate everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you then. Have a good day, guys.